Hey friends, Tashin here. I'm out for a walk midday and thought I'd record a video. The other day the concept of aimlines came up, which is a word I invented for an alternative to deadlines. And so I wanted to talk about what an aimline is and how it relates to a deadline and how I came up with this in the first place, why I find them useful. So when I did projects just by myself, typically, like a blog post or some website or something, whatever it was that I did back in the day when I mostly worked by myself, I would just work on my projects and I'd kind of work on it until it was done, and then it was done. And that worked well for me because I picked projects that were enlivening for me, that were fun for me, that I was actively interested in. And also, oftentimes no one was asking me for the specific project. Nobody was like, just to take a simple example, no one was like, please write a blog post on John Boyd, for example. But I was like, yeah, I want to write a blog post on John Boyd. And I made a good blog post, and I'm glad I did that. And I just worked on it until it was done. And it took a while. Same with my long blog post on fundraising, which took me like 3 years, actually. I tracked it. I went back and tracked. It took multiple years and multiple iterations, and there were multiple impasses and obstacles. And I really wanted to finish it, and it was something that was important to me. And so I just worked on it until it was done. And it took years. And I knew that about myself, that I could choose projects that were fun and interesting and important to me and just work on them until they were done. And that worked well for me. And, in the past, things like deadlines hadn't worked so well for me. When I very briefly had a programming job, the sense of external pressure or like trying to finish certain things by certain times was like very stressful. And similarly associated with school, like having these assignments that other people gave me that I had to finish by a certain time, or else I'd get a bad grade, and like nebulous bad things would happen to me. Nothing bad ever happened. I wish I'd gotten worse grades in school, actually, because it just did not matter. So much of what they taught was like worthless to me in the end. With the exceptions of St. John's, where they didn't even have deadlines, or, they gave you grades, but that was just for grad school, and you didn't even see them unless you asked for them. Anyway, that's a tangent. Point is, I never liked deadlines, and it was like this artificially imposed, externally imposed assignment with an artificial deadline that was just for the sake of like grading. And it's just like, this is frankly some bullshit. There are projects where it makes sense to have a deadline, where it's like, no, we need to like get the food to the people by the time, or we have an event that we're running, and it's going to be on this date and we've already sold tickets or whatever. But a lot of projects in this day and age don't really have deadlines, and they don't really need them because it's important work, it's fun work, but it's not urgent, and there's no real deadline. And so, I was pretty used to, when working by myself, not working with deadlines, just doing projects that I felt like and moving them along as I was able to. And that made sense to me. And then when I started coordinating with other people would ask me like, well, what's the deadline here? Like, what are we aiming for? And I learned that for other people, it's different. It's useful to have a deadline. And maybe this is a relic of school or work, where people have had different life experiences than I have had, and maybe even related to that in a more positive, wholesome way, where like people find a deadline useful. And in fact, I started to find them useful because I was coordinating with other people, and it was like, well, this blog post we're co-authoring or this thing we're doing doesn't have a real intrinsically meaningful deadline, but we're planning around it and we're putting effort into it. So like, let's be on the same page about when we're trying to finish this by. And it was also useful because I was coordinating and juggling different projects. And one of the skills I've had to get good at is almost like playing StarCraft, but with projects, where it's like, who's working on what, and how much resources do we have, how much time do we have, how much energy do we have, who has which skills, that sort of thing. and juggling all of that so that it goes well, and that more projects can happen over time with a bigger impact that are more fun for us. Service project throughput, increasing the rate at which service projects are finished. And so it was like a shift in my psychology from like deadlines are totally useless to like, oh, they're kind of useful even if they're a little bit made up in a lot of cases. And there's some cases where they're not made up. It's like, no, we have a meta dance party at this day, this time, got to get it together, these things need to happen, etc., or the party's just not happening. And so I like to invent words. It's one of my hobbies, and eventually I just found a word for this because I had a field actually in our Notion database. We use Notion extensively at the Service Guild for deadline, and every time I'd start a project with someone, I'd be like, yeah, we should pick a deadline for this project, but I just don't like that word. It doesn't feel like the right word. That ain't it, chief. And so I eventually invented the word aimline, which felt much more resonant for me and much more true to my experience, which is like, this is the date that we're aiming to finish this by. And at that date, we're going to check in about how this is going. It may or may not be finished by that time, but this is what we're aiming for. And this provides a natural date to check in and be like, how's this going? Are we enjoying this? Is this going well? Does anything need to change? Are we canceling this project? And so it's like, oh, we're going to try to finish this by November. That's the plan. Let's say halfway through the month. And, we're going to move forward. Everybody's got next actions. And then in November, we get to check, like, did this project happen? Was it good? Is it worth it? Should we keep going if it's not finished? Should we revise the aimline? Should we have a new aimline? Which often happens, projects take longer than you think they will. So yeah, I just felt some relaxation in my body actually when I started using this word. It's like, yeah, let's use the word aimline because it's not just a euphemism, it's actually more true. It's like we're aiming to finish this by this date and let's check in then. It's not just like touchy-feely, it's actually truer to my actual experience of picking a timeline for a project. It's like, especially the kinds of projects we tend to do in the Service Guild where a lot of them, 80-90% of them don't have a specific date that they need to happen by, at least right now at this stage. So yeah, that's what an aimline is and where it comes from and why I like it. Feel free to use this word in your own projects and contexts and work and whatever. I love inventing words. It's so fun to invent words, and that's where this one came from. Hope you are doing well, friend, wherever you are, and I'm sending you love.